All right, welcome back. For this next section, we're going to take a look at a branch that I had started on error handling. But before we do that, it's time to refresh the introductions here. We had some people come and go. So again, we'll go ahead and start with David. That way we don't forget him as we're wanting
Hello.
to.
Hello again, David.
Hi, David.
Hello.
How's your cat?
Doing okay. Not in this room, luckily.
Well, I'm Paul.
Zachary.
Chris.
John.
Bill.
Lance. All right, so Lance, you're at the keyboard today, so you get to try and put up with all of us yelling at you, telling you what to click on and do.
Yay. Work smarter, not harder.
So,
all right. Work harder too.
The branch we're after is the error handling v2 branch. So, for the context, if you'd watched one of the previous videos, we'd gone through this, and the error handling that we had in the curriculum, it was good. It was helpful. It provided some great context for like how to recover from an error, but it was missing an aspect of it that we were wanting to add, which was reporting on it. Well, unfortunately, I went ahead and added the reporting idea, but then lost the recovery. And so Bill caught that and said, hey, we should not do that. Let's go ahead and actually make this capture both reporting and recovery. But as part of kind of like a philosophy of how we teach some of this stuff, we try to introduce the ideas in these more atomic little chunks. That way you can pick and choose what you actually want to take with you from there, or you can introduce them in different orders, however is needed for the actual flow of the class. And so the next step from here is we're going to have to create a new step in our curriculum and go through the process of pulling this back out. All right, so to start, let's just go ahead and bring up the class curriculum machinery and make sure the whole thing just runs. Like, let's just see step 706 run before we try and make any changes.
You should probably close the generate outline.sh so people don't have to avert their eyes from the previous video.
All right.
If you really love Bash, then don't miss that one.
Oh, is that what I missed out on?
Yes, John.
That is
We
what
missed
I
so much Bash. And grep and sed and awk and find and xargs.
Darn.
Oh,
I know.
We're doing Pug again too.
Oh yeah.
We're doing
Yeah, there's
again,
Pug
too.
in there.
I haven't done that for 4 years.
On a browser.
Yeah, I don't think we have one up. We have to open a new one.
Okay. And this is AP, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was 706 is what we had seen.
So this is on trunk. So this is the old behavior, not the new behavior you had added.
All right.
So flip open the console so people can actually see what we're about to change. All the red is actually on purpose. This is not an actual accident. We're showing code that generates errors.
Yeah, so the behavior here is that every few seconds it will flip from making a call to a good endpoint that has data, and then we see it take that data and display it on the screen, to having it flip over on the next pass and fetching from a URL that doesn't exist, causing the 404 seeing the no employees could be loaded message instead.
I have a small thing that's not directly related to what we're trying to accomplish, but I keep meaning to come back to this step and do it because it would be the perfect step to do it on. You see the way that we're outputting all of our data arrived? I think that's a perfect use case for using console.table.
Yeah.
Console.table is really slick. Almost no one knows it exists, and this would be a really great place to demonstrate it.
Well, let's go ahead and start by getting over onto a branch.
Okay.
Right now we're on master. You can probably just go ahead and pile it onto the error handling branch. This is where we're having the
So
discussion.
a new branch off this branch?
No, just continue on with the error handling branch.
Kyle, do you want your water bottle to participate in? Is that
No, I was just trying to. I want to know if I could lean across.
the ghost water bottle coming in from the corner? That's Kyle. No, there it is.
All right. So we're on that branch, and so now the behavior.
Lance, if you're wanting a meeting that was going to like stay on track, you were in the wrong room.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, so unfortunately now we just lost that retry capability. So let's see. Let's just revisit your idea once we get that functionality back.
It's fine. Anywhere that we would output that, it should be a fairly quick, easy change to turn it to console.
So I'd say let's just start in the code, copy paste the directory, do our rename as needed. Yeah, so let's just so our mechanism. We have this nifty little whiz-bang mechanism under the hood that if you name something, for example, 706.1, it actually knows how to turn that into 707 and then rename subsequent steps after that accordingly. And so for now, we're just going to put it next to it. And let's put a dash skip after it.
At the end?
Right here at the
Or-
beginning, dash capital skip.
Okay.
That way, when we're done, we can remove that, and then it can go into the auto-publish step.
This is a
It's
really
not
easy
good.
way for us to do things like that are going to be work in progress for a while, because we expect this to be quick and easy, but sometimes they aren't. And you can see there are actually several things that are placeholders for stuff that will eventually show up in the material.
So I am arbitrarily declaring that 706 is recovery, and
Yep, that's good.
70 and what will be 707 is reporting.
Shouldn't those be in the other order?
We can figure that out later.
Report first, then recover.
So right now, he hasn't changed anything from how we teach class today, though. 706 is the recovery one. We've just now arrived at that name for it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's why I chose that one.
But we do need to now put the content of 706 back to what it was.
Yes.
So we need to go in there and kind of grab the right blocks from source tree here, and try and get your diff view a little higher if you could, as you work through this.
You can do a git magic and just pull those versions of that file from the previous version.
Yeah, I don't think I know the Git magic as well as you do. So,
Can't you
well,
just-
okay, should I probably
If you just
I'll-
copied all those to 706.1, can't you just reverse the changes in 706?
do I
Yeah,
have
so
to?
if you undo the naming there,
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
now I think what John said is true.
And then I can come here to this commit and just revert.
I believe so.
Might have to
I
do it
think
over
you have
here.
to do it at a. You can right click on the line in a tree
Triple dots.
and
revert the whole
reverse
thing.
commit.
Yeah, we just do that.
That makes a new commit.
That's
Yeah.
fine. We're gonna squash all the history anyway.
All right, so now, so that's reverting everything, and then we have on top of it, we've created the new thing.
Yep.
So if I come over here,
So we should be able to see that in our browser too.
true.
And we do. And then if you wanted to go back to the root directory, we can click on
So we should have
skip.
706 does the back and forth, and 706.1 does not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Briefly showed loading before going away there. Okay.
I want to point out that this thing's intentionally made to let you like bring up two in different tabs and switch back and forth instantly without restarting anything. Is that worth explaining? Or is that too big of a diversion?
I mean, I don't think we need to work on both
Yeah,
of them at the same
okay.
time.
You know about the actual class materials being able to like
Yeah.
do two things at once? Yeah.
You can work on 50 examples without restarting anything.
Yeah.
Pretty cool feature.
So recovery, this is now what we had before, and there was some unhappiness with it.
Was the idea that we were simply going to show, instead of like 3 different variations or 2 different variations, that we were going to show people, here's the right way to do this?
Yeah, I think we probably should think about this from from fresh eyes.
Right.
This has gotten kind of stale overall, and I think approaching it from, how do we want to go about doing recovery, focusing on the primary bits rather than different ways of showing the polling idea. We need to focus on different recovery ideas.
Yeah, I think polling's actually going to go away in this.
Possibly.
Well, no, if we want to switch back and forth between a couple of bad, a good URL and a bad URL. What?
Toggle this. I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah, that could work. Because I'm afraid that sometimes in class people get confused right out of the gate with the whole interval, because it's the observable type being generated that people haven't ever seen before. I like all of that, and I think it might actually get in the way of what we're trying to demonstrate. What did you say, Chris?
I think I just agreed.
I like that. I like it when Chris agrees with me.
I
feel
want
like
to
I'm
do
on
a
the right
simple
track.
thing first. We have these back here. We have things in place. I just want to see what Bill suggested.
I don't
Is that
know.
the one we're using?
Yeah, take a look at the.
Very well. I'll start with that. I would think that would work. Or
I don't know you hit save, did you?
oh, I'm used to an editor where it automatically saves. So
You live dangerous, I see.
Look at that.
Oh,
that's
my.
cool.
That is
Oh,
nice.
Great.
wow.
So do we need to have that
Ship it.
label that we had in there before?
I mean,
The nose thing.
it would be nice.
Is that the syntax?
Hope you got
I haven't got a
multiple
clue
tables.
if there's a way to do that in the console.table. You should.
Hover the table and see if it tells you. I think it might actually have that capability.
I don't. Or
So
just
yeah,
hover
I was saying if
table.
you like do that.
Maybe
No,
we
it
can
just
no.
well,
It's
one
got one
overlord,
overload.
an overlord.
Tables are kind of properties.
It's just their properties.
I wonder what the properties could be.
Why is it a string? Oh, it's string array. Like, wait.
Yeah.
So
Just leave
I'm curious now to know what table properties are.
Oh, that's the properties of the data it displays.
These are excellent questions.
Yeah, right.
do we?
You could ask
All
for Google.
speculation. Yeah.
In the end.
Am I supposed to be keeping my role of bill wrangler in this
No,
call?
no, Bill just do whatever he wants here. It's in the bylaws.
That is
That is
awesome.
All right.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Yeah, it's all console tables. Like
So
I
it's-
was expecting by the end of the first page.
Our show needs to have a road trip to the Pottery Barn, so we can go on site to learn how console tables are made.
Let's try this. There we go.
Oh.
Yay.
Additional columns is the parameter. So I guess we don't get that label by default.
Okay.
I don't know if we care.
That's fine. I mean, another
Yeah.
console log above it would be
Yeah.
fine. It's just the table view is pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Is there a way to not
Very
display
cool.
like 100 items is a lot of items.
Yeah. You
So-
should slice it to 5 or something so it doesn't blow everything else off the console.
Okay, so what I'll do is
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of items, but aren't we losing what we're trying to log if we start mutating it? Aren't we trying to show what the data that came back from the back end looks
That's a
like?
good point. What do you think?
I think it was,
Curriculum Wrangler?
I think it was more the idea that we wanted to capture was just showing that yes, we have data. No, it does not look like the data that we put on the like failure path. We just
Also, the
needed to
expanded
differentiate.
array that comes out under, like, over there, you see there's an array 1,
Mhm.
array 100. Is that part of doing console.table, or is that a separate thing we're doing? I think it's actually the data you can expand right there, isn't it?
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Seems that way.
Hurry up, click on, hurry. Come
Come
on.
on, Lance.
Yeah, that's why this is a bad example. Because how do you teach with it like continuing to?
Right.
Yeah.
Having a little switch might help.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have no
Yeah.
idea. I am not allowed to find out either.
You kill the.
You just gotta
kill
be
your
really
root connection.
fast.
Yeah.
You don't even need a toggle. You could just switch the network thing to
Yeah.
offline.
Yeah.
And then you'll just get a lot of reds.
Oh, they'll
No,
still
'cause
keep
it's
scrolling.
still-
the
No,
reds.
because you still got, it's being driven by observable.interval.
I believe there's a place
I
in
don't know.
the tools that you
Yeah,
can
so
turn
it's-
off
Granted,
intervals and
you could
timeouts,
also
so it can
just
freeze the
Press
world
the
of your
back button
page.
and go to a page that doesn't have that label. And keep your mouse open.
There you go.
Yep.
I just meant instead of having the multiple
There.
whole.
Very nice.
So I was
Oh,
looking up
You see-
console.table
and like-
and found out there's a console.profile and console.profile.end that allows you to profile sections of code.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff in console that nobody uses ever.
Yep.
Like grouping.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Anyway.
hadn't thought of that, but that's a much better way to demonstrate this stuff anyway, rather than have it pull, just have the instructor take it offline.
I mean, that's literally how I test my observable pipelines
Yeah.
in my project. Is I go to the network tab and I
I
turn the internet off and
I
on
think
and
Chris
see
ought
if
to
it.
drive.
How do you turn the internet off and on?
Press the
See the
double arrow.
online, offline button?
Yeah,
There
and
you go.
then you see the error message coming. And so if you have it on an interval, but you only have one poll method, and then as you switch that back and forth, it'll either
Yeah, so it's
succeed or fail.
one good URL, but the network could go away on you.
Yeah.
In the polling use case, there actually makes sense of like I just want the data to be refreshed every so often.
so often, get the data again.
Yeah.
That's a better user story on a couple of axes.
I like
And
these
this
changes.
is a good way.
Let's
this
do
is a
the
good
things.
technique for them to actually use when they go back and are testing their
Right.
application.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm digging this
All right. So what are we doing
because
here?
I have been asking class, why would I ever like try to visit a URL I know is bad and I have to explain to someone This is just an example of like, and they're like, you see them get stuck sometimes.
Picture's not of your building, it's a representation of your building. So delete all the poles that are not.
What is this, an observable for ants? Sorry.
Hold on.
John.
I know I'm not supposed to use my phone during the videos, but it's got to be some tweeting happening.
Okay.
Alright, so
Carry
over
on.
here, just change it to get employees, and we will make get employees be an observable that polls.
Why are you unhappy?
Because you have to, I think you have to come over here maybe, or I think you have to import it. Perhaps?
I mean,
No,
it was.
I have no idea. I don't know what I'm talking about, ignore me.
Chris knows things, ask her.
So, okay, so this is returning. Whoa, we don't have that there. Maybe that would be helpful. So this is returning an observable of an object.
Only what?
Because
Or
we have to type the get in order to get any.
Yeah,
Useful
I
information out
think
of
that's
this.
all it is. So it's just a string array, right? Or what actually is it?
No, it isn't.
That's an employee array.
An array of employee?
It appears to be an array.
Oh, it's gonna be an Annie because no one typed this stuff. You can look at line 18 on the other file.
Yeah, maybe we should pull. Don't we have an employee interface and
Yes,
other stuff?
We have-
It's a different stuff.
We have that interface on a bunch of different stuff. I don't know if we have it on
We just pull
706.
It
in.
appears not to be here, so we need to bring that in.
Yep.
Preferably at the service.
So where was one of those that had it? 505. Let's
The guy who wrote this stuff is really sloppy with it.
Is this you?
But he's a Zoolander fan, so he's okay on that.
So employee loader service.
Yeah, it just defines it up there.
Are we good with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Now this says that it returns an observable of employee or first name string. So because this is
Cast it.
a partial of employee, essentially.
I should be able to cast though.
Yeah.
Well, let's not fight that battle because that's part of the thing I want to remove.
Okay. But
What
then,
do we-
I mean,
good
okay,
point,
and
we
but
don't
now
need
we're
to-
happy. I guess the any makes it. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah, for me.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, let's purge the any.
Yeah, please.
It's a witch. Burn it.
How that actually make it through?
Because
Not an
Well,
explicit
it's an
inies
explicit
are okay.
any.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they must have meant to do that.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and
Is
we are
there
getting rid of
something
these
that-
two poll
I think
poll
there is.
functions.
We're just having a
Okay,
bad
so now now that console table is gone because we're not actually logging it anywhere. We might want to add a tap in here.
I mean, we just. I think console table was neat. I don't think it was buying us anything.
Yeah.
Like the console log at all. It was like just there to help people get out of their confusion of the poll.
Yeah.
Like, now we don't have a poll, so there's no confusion
Yeah.
around it.
Fair enough.
Wait, we lost our interval. We need to
Yes,
add
that
it
was the
back in,
point.
right? Okay. Wait.
Okay.
What is
We
the
still
point?
need a poll.
No,
so-
we
No.
still need to add it back in.
Or do you just want to refresh?
We're gonna add it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and put one back. Let's take a look and see what we had. So the poll was every 2 seconds doing the switch map to the HTTP get. So yeah, I think we were.
But we don't
wanting
need
to-
that anymore.
Well, I think the idea that we were going for. Chris,
I mean, we
correct
don't
me
need
if
the
I'm-
map between the two URLs. I'm sorry.
between the two.
Right,
no,
right.
yeah,
We
no.
still need the interval so that it keeps.
And we still need the two different polls
Refreshing.
because they do error catching in different ways, don't they?
Because
there's
one
difference in
Well, I
scope
mean,
and
the
catch
point
error.
wasn't the point of this that one of them does it wrong and one of them
Yes,
does it right.
exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so do we want to show both the wrong and the right
No.
still,
Nope.
or we're just showing the
We
right?
don't.
Well,
So
that
here's
was-
my argument.
Yeah.
My argument is that it's very easy to do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Okay, what's
And the difference is where you put the switch map. If you put it on the outer observable or the inner, or the
catch
the
error.
catch error.
Catch error,
If
yeah.
you put the
That's a-
catch error on the outer or the inner
Gotcha.
observable, and I think it's
That's
worth
the
showing.
point.
Okay, well let's give them names that actually encode what we're trying to teach here.
Okay.
So, poll 1, this is actually what? This is the one where you make your HTTP get and where that catch error is attached to
Well,
the.
that's not poll 1. That's get employees. That's just the raw get employees, which we use later in poll 2
Yeah,
when we're
get
doing it the right way.
employees. Get employees
So,
isn't usual.
well, let's just start with poll 1. So it has a switch map to a get, and then the catch error comes after the switch map. So the catch error is not attached to the HTTP request. It's attached
Right.
to
Yeah,
the outer
it's in this
one.
pipeline.
It's
that-
on
yeah.
the top level
Okay,
pipeline.
so I know what that means. John, can you explain that for the camera?
So what that means, oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot. That means that any error, that the switch map is going to return and could return an observable with an error, which puts our top level observable into an error state that we're then catching. And we can catch that error, but then we kind of fail out at that point, right?
We're replacing the overall interval 2000 with of fake data,
That's it.
and
That's
so
it.
the interval is dead.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so
it's not that we fail out. It's that we replace it with that brand new observable.
Now
Yeah, but
let's-
once you've caught an
yeah.
error in an observable like that, you're done with that guy. You need to
that
resubscribe
observable
to-
is now
yeah.
done.
Which
Yep.
that by itself is kind of the key point of this example. That a lot of people think, oh, I have a catch, therefore the observable is still good. I can use it again.
Right. And that's
No,
why I
that's
want to
not the way
leave
that works.
this example in there.
I forgot that was in there.
So if we scroll down, we'll see how
This isn't catching
subtly
at all.
different this one is.
Which
Okay.
isn't catching.
It catches inside
It
the
catches
get
inside
employees.
get employees,
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, it's up here.
which
Yeah,
is
so-
free to die. That is our sacrificial observable here.
Yeah.
So pull two
Trap
here
your failures
still
inside a
does the
switch map.
interval, still does the map. Now in the switch map, instead of doing the HTTP get, it calls out to get employees. And here we're not doing any error handling, any catching at all from line 52 to 57. Instead, if we go now look at the definition of get employees, it does that catch error now on line 25 as part of a pipe off of the request to make it. And so what we're essentially saying is every time I request it, I'm requesting it, and here's the error handling for this time in which I've tried to fetch
Yeah,
it.
for this
Next
specific-
time, I'm going to do it again and have a different, it's technically the same implementation, but it's going to say catch this one-time error, catch this one-time error, catch this one-time error. It's going to do that every 2 seconds without killing the overall pipeline. And
So what do we want to call? We're going to be. Are we still going to be using our polling mechanism?
So I think
Or
the
not.
idea with the polling mechanism, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, was that we want to use that, but we're going to simplify the story down to it just keeps refreshing the data. It doesn't do anything fancy with URLs, but we're going to have one that fetches the data but recovers from errors poorly. We're going to have one that continues to fetch the data and recovers the correct way.
So do we want to have a single? I mean, we're going to keep get employees. Get employees are going to hang around.
Yep.
But do we want to have a single method that has like the bad way to do it first,
Mhm.
and it fails immediately? You know, you load the example and it doesn't work. But then comment out the section that's bad and uncomment the section that's good and show them the working one? Or are we going to have like two side-by-side methods the way we do here?
Well, let's keep it simple and do one.
I mean, we could also have it so that we have two of them on here, and one of them is going back in fourth grade, and the other is
That's a
I
dying.
good
kind of
one.
dig that.
Do we want to
And
usually, like when you're teaching, showing them the bad way first usually sticks more than showing them the good way first. So I think having this is how it works. This is how we think it should be set up the best. But then if you may also encounter this and show them the bad examples of how to set it up.
I kind of like keeping the polling, and that way it's like something is happening on the screen. I want to get back to your idea, Lance, but keep the polling. So it's like, look, we're getting new data, new data, new data. But then what happens if we momentarily lose the network? We do Chris's trick, we actually take things offline. Which, again, like Chris said, yet another thing that people often don't even know they can do with the Chrome DevTools, where all the power in the world lives. So we take it offline, and then we bring it, obviously it errors out. We bring it back online, and it doesn't come back.
Right.
Then we make one tiny change in the code, subtle but important change, and it lives through disconnects.
yeah,
like
I really want that story captured as the result of this.
Right.
And I even like your idea of taking it a step further and making the difference literally be a comment within one method, because then the mental gymnastics that a student has to do is between the two lines, not dipping entire
between
blocks of
two
mostly the
blocks of
same
code. Yeah.
blocks of code.
I say we try that and just kind of see how it feels.
Mhm.
And if we want to snazz it up or change it around, we can. But I think that's a pretty good place to start.
Okay.
I kind of dig what Lance was going for, which is like, look, they're doing the same thing side by side. One of them dies, one of them keeps going.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is going to get us there or not. So I think we do the simple thing first, and then see where we take it after that.
I think it does a better idea because you don't have to jump back and forth and okay, I'm going to comment out this block and uncomment this block, and then we'll go back and refresh and show it to you. You can have both methods there. Each one is tied to a different observable, and they're both on the screen, and you can say, now remember this one was working, that's here. This one wasn't working, that's over here.
But like Paul was saying, that's two
Yeah, you
different...
just said this is here and that's there, and this does this and that does that.
Yeah.
Like that alone just lost the students who are on day 3 whose brains are falling out of their ears because they just learned 4 new operators in the last half
we
hour.
can build the one method and then very easily try out what he just said. So if we build the one method that has the commented out section and the uncommented section, and then physically copy it, we can see how it works in practice. And if we had an easy way to pull them up side by side, it's not actually that bad.
Yeah. So let's start with that.
Elvis has entered the building.
All right.
He was trying to do it without anybody noticing, but that didn't work.
So let's go ahead and start by just deleting poll 2. Okay, and now up here, this is already doing the thing that we described for the bad part. However, we can get rid of that map entirely. But in there, just use that. Yep.
Yeah,
And we don't need to pass anything now to switchMap.
But we're still switch mapping.
We're still switch mapping from our interval, right?
I guess URL was passed in here. Oh. Well, this could be a constant now because it's going to be the same.
And
You just add the API URL.
Do we want them separate or do you
no,
want
because there's no.
Okay.
Do we want it consistent with the rest of our stuff?
Yeah, I don't love the fact that we still use that proxy, the API URL, which I know we've talked about before, but that's a different story.
Actually, there might be some machinery in here that requires that we do that separately. Do a Control-Shift-F for API URL real quick.
Yeah, leave that
The
alone.
slash employees usually is a plus on top of it.
Control-Shift-F.
In almost all of our steps, we have like string concatenation for the endpoint.
AP.
You didn't do the Control-Shift-F5, but that's fine.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what he wanted, and now I
Change
You're
understand.
also in specs.
Yeah, sorry, my mind thinks in keyboard shortcuts instead of actual coherent words. So yeah, as part of our machinery, we actually swap that
Just
URL.
leave that line unmolested in all files.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Like that. I don't know, something besides
You
URL.
can concatenate it up there, Lance. You don't have to concatenate it.
Okay, I don't know what the difference
what's going
between.
on?
On line
Line
7,
6
add
alone.
API URL to the
Okay.
definition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
line
all right.
6.
That makes sense. And then all.
Yeah, since we're no longer varying that, we can kill all that stuff. This becomes just straight URL. Okay. And we don't need to keep... Yeah, so we're good.
All right.
I am going, because this is going to force us to fix things, we may get rid of it. I'm just going to put this here because things are bad.
Would it be too much? We got like 5-6 lines of duplicated code. Would it be too confusing to extract some of the error
Oh, the catchError.
content into a function?
Let's get there. We're not there yet. So on this, we do the switch map, we do the catch error. For the time being, go ahead and delete the console error out of there. It's like just get to the core functionality before we keep going. And now the idea was, so this was something that we placed in here. I really don't like it. I'm not sure how to make the right move here.
I'm guessing the fake data.
And that's the fake data.
Yeah, that's...
The problem is that this example, we're trying to show the simplest possible version of this machinery.
Right.
And if you really want to do this correctly, this gets a lot fancier really quickly.
Right. And so...
Which I would love to have an example that actually shows that properly, and maybe we do over in some of Conrad's.
Yeah, Conrad's step is like the end-all be-all of
But
of
it is
this.
so big and complicated and impressive, frankly, that it obscures things
Well,
like
the
this.
point 1 that we just added was the simplified version of Conrad's stuff.
Point one. Would
The point of this was
Kind of
to
wraps
add.
the
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, so mine is the simplified version of Conrad's thing. So what I'm thinking for now is just make it an empty array.
Yeah.
Because like
Make
the absence of data to the presence of data is a strong enough signal. You know,
Either that
with,
or have the template take care of the error message if it's an empty array.
Yeah. If you end up with something that is not,
Well,
but
it's
should it
still
be an
not-
empty array or should it be
undefined,
undefined? Should it be some sort of like,
falsy value that we
Yeah.
can then deal with in the template.
because an empty array is still like maybe there weren't any employees that matched this criteria. That's still a valid thing to get.
What's going on there?
I changed it to undefined.
We're in the wrong spot though.
Are we?
Yes, we're working in poll first.
Okay, I missed that. Okay. I'm actually really surprised that we don't have a compilation problem here, that it is not objecting.
Well, 'cause
Why not? Fake data is an array of employees.
It is not.
It's very
Employees has more than first name. Like, why does it complain here, but not here?
Let's see. So what's
Probably because of how interfaces work, right? Because if you had defined fake data as an array of employees on line 41, then it would have complained. But because you are using data that's predefined, right, now it's complaining.
That disembodied voice you hear, by the way, is Jack. Hello,
Hello.
Jack.
So yeah, so now it understands that fake data must exactly be an employee, but because you don't have that there, when you return something,
But it can figure it out up here.
yeah.
I mean, there's obviously a level of indirection that this is happening through a switch map, but I would think
Well,
types would come through.
So if you look at line 25, that's the actual return from the get employees, and it types the return type from the HTTP get. Whereas on line 37 in poll 1, we have an interval.pipe that's being returned, and it's inferring that it's a observable of type employee, but we're not explicitly saying what type is being returned.
Interesting.
Online.
Yeah, but in any case, you're returning the pipe, which is going to look at
Yeah,
the bottom of the pipe.
The types should flow through.
But probably the tap data : any is probably what is going to be
Yep.
Yeah,
doing it.
Yeah.
I've not
It's
seen that with that.
confused.
So I wonder if I said that this was, if I didn't type that, now it's
Oh, wow.
complaining.
Yeah.
there you
Yep.
I like that.
Because you cast it to any in a type.
All right, thank you, David.
That's crazy.
Yep.
No,
Alright.
It did exactly what we told it to. That's annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I always think of tap as it doesn't affect anything, but I guess
But if
that
you give
typing.
you give it types, so like here,
I
yeah.
didn't realize that the typing that you put in type actually affected.
Yeah, that's pretty important to know.
okay, so where are we?
That's not good.
All right. So inside catch error, let's return of undefined
In the poll 1?
in the poll 1.
And so now this is going to have to be employed.
And that is super important and what we want because we're about to go, like based on that fact, go do the right thing in the template.
So nothing is using poll 1 right now, so do you want me to make?
Do we need to fix anything about get employees up there? Since now
Eventually.
fake data is truly wrong.
Well,
Do you want me to make the same change up here?
yeah, may as well. We will be needing that. And get rid of the console error for now as well. We're stripping it down to the bare necessities.
And you're putting the underscore on the error just to say, hey, we know this is a parameter, but we are deliberately not using it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Alright, so with this, let's replace the use of get employees with poll 1 on the left there, right? And fix up the types. Address the template error.
Template error.
On line 12, we are trying to access first name and last name of undefined. Well, no. Employees becomes
Employees.
Yeah, we don't
Like
want to even
ACI.
try to do a list
Yeah.
if we didn't get back the employees. So
That's unwrap it.
do we have async as in our curriculum anywhere?
I don't know if we have
Yes.
it
Explicitly?
but I'm not sure where it is in relation to this. It's got to be earlier than this because this is a fairly late step. But typically by this point it has been used multiple times because I have usually steered people in the class toward running into a place where they need it.
Right, right.
We
Like, I
haven't
knew
talked
we
about it by
once
now. Talk about it now.
yeah, so this would be a great use of it. It's after when we've introduced it, so we don't have to worry about that. So
You're gonna
let's
put
just
a-
go ahead and do an if.
And if on
Yeah,
line
NGF
10,
around
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
where-
have an unordered list at all unless we have an array.
correct.
Where do you want to put the NGF?
Line
between
10.
between 9 and 10.
No, line 10.
110.
Or we don't need the extra layer.
But aren't we going to want something that says, you know, hey, I didn't get a list
Yeah,
back?
but not an unordered list.
No,
But
no,
it has
that's
to be
what I'm saying.
scoped within the as. So yeah, Bill's
So
right.
we're not
we
going to
need-
do an else.
Like
No, we're not doing it else. So yeah, we need our ng.
I bet we end up doing it else.
In the container.
Wait, what?
It's going to be wrapped around.
But it we won't go inside if it's undefined. So then. I don't see how that's
Yes,
possible.
you're right.
Unpack your confusion so that
Yeah,
will
you
understand.
can't possibly handle the undefined inside of an ng if that says if this thing is undefined, don't go in here.
Unless you do a
So we're
hack.
going to use an else.
Well, isn't there an, yeah, there's an else.
yeah, that's-
Right, which is what John
we
said.
we want to, and that's why I whispered to John, we're going to end up with an else. So what we want is what he just typed. We want to end up with an employee object that is a result of subscribing to the employee's observable with the async pipe, and we only get inside that ng container if that list of actually that's a list of employees. Yeah, if that list of employees has been populated.
Make that plural.